All right, let's talk about ticks because something weird seems to be going on with the tick situation. If you've been on the good old interwebs lately, particularly X, you'll see a lot of weird videos floating around about animals being basically taken down by thousands of ticks, and they're finding them dead, and they got thousands of ticks all over them. There's farmers talking about boxes of ticks being dropped off on their property. So it's a bit strange. And then you've got there's a couple of articles, one from the New York Post, one from the Times, talking about an uptick in ticks. See what I did there? So I'm concerned about ticks because I live in the Santa Cruz Mountains and I'm a trail runner, and I get bit by a tick at least once a year, and I have for years, probably like 7 years, basically ever since I started trail running. There's a trail, I could throw a rock and hit it from my house that I don't go on anymore because every time I get back from that trail, my dog has 5 to 10 ticks on her, even though she's on flea and tick medication. I usually have to pull 1 or 2 ticks off of myself. And the other week, maybe a month ago, a couple weeks, maybe a month ago, I went on a run, not even on the trails. I went just down the street on my normal 5 mile route and came back up. Didn't hit any trees, didn't touch anything. I was on a paved road the whole time. And when I was in the shower, washing myself, and what is that? What is that on my leg? I had my eyes closed because I was shampooing. But anyway, I felt something on my leg, and sure enough, it was a tick embedded into my skin once a year. Last year I got bit twice, and obviously I'm concerned about Lyme disease. I don't have Lyme disease, at least I hope not. And so this whole tick hubbub is worrying me a little bit, and I want to talk about it. So let's see if this is a real deal thing or if it's a bunch of hopped up hobbity hoopla. All right, let's get into it. Let's go to this article from the California Post. It's a short article, so it'll be a quick read, but let's get into it. And then I have another one from the Times after that I want to read. So this one is titled "Tick Bites Sending Americans to the ER at Highest Rate in Nearly a Decade," according to the CDC. So this article says tick bites are sending Americans to the emergency room at the highest rate in nearly a decade, according to the new CDC data. During the second week of April, 71 out of every 100,000 emergency room visits were for tick bites, more than double the usual average of about 30 per 100,000. So, okay, that's definitely an uptick, but it's still not a huge percentage. Said the agency, which said this year's number matched the data from 2017. Okay, so about the same since 2000 that it was in 2017. Right now, the Northeast is seeing the biggest spike, followed by the Midwest, Southeast, West, and South Central regions, according to the CDC data. For every 100,000 ER visits in the Northeast, 163 were for tick-related complaints, up to 52 in March, according to the most current data. Update on April 12th. For every 100,000 ER visits in New Jersey, 13 tick-related complaints. All right. We're running well above the historical average and even well above last year, says Dr. John J. Halprin, chair of the New Jersey Stroke Care Advisory Panel and member of the Department of Neuroscience at the Atlantic Health Overlook Medical Center in New Jersey. The New York State Parks Department is already warning people to be mindful of ticks as they get outdoors in the warm summer. It's not just the bites, it's what comes from them. The blood-sucking bugs carry more than a dozen diseases, including Lyme disease, Rocky Mountain spotted fever, and babesiosis, said the CDC. The big one that everybody's worried about from the Lone Star tick, they can transmit bacteria, viruses, and parasites that cause serious illness. Some can even trigger dangerous allergic reactions like the deadly alpha-gal syndrome. And that's the one that makes you allergic to red meat. So I don't think any of us want that, except for globalists that want us to stop eating meat. But we'll get into that in a bit. Another alarming condition linked to tick bites is meningeal cephalitis, a rare but potentially deadly inflammation of the brain and its lining. Symptoms can escalate quickly: fever, headache, stiff neck, light sensitivity, confusion, seizures, and even a coma. Left untreated, it can lead to permanent brain damage or death. It's not encouraging. The good news is there are ways to protect yourself and your pets. The CDC recommends avoiding wooded and brushy areas with higher grass and leaf litter, and sticking to the center of trails and hiking. And just hope everybody knows this stuff. If you get outside, don't rub up against bushes. Like, that's what you don't want to do. You can, some bushes, you'll look at one leaf and it'll have hundreds of ticks on it, and all you have to do is brush it and you got ticks all over you. It's not good. Use Environmental Protection Agency registered insect repellents containing at least 20% DEET, 20% picaridin, and the listed active ingredient or other approved ingredients, but avoid using them on children under age 3. There's also natural repellents, I think, like ginger, stuff like that. But anyway, if headed outdoors, cover up with long sleeves, pants, and socks. I run in shorts. I'm not going to run in pants. Afterwards, do a full body tick check and don't skip hidden spots like the armpits, groin, under the breasts, between the buttocks. Make sure you look between the cheeks, guys. Between the toes, inside the belly button, and along the back. If you find a tick, remove it immediately with tweezers. There's, whenever I get a tick and it's embedded in me, you don't want to just rip it out, because you can squeeze what's inside the tick into your body, so it's not good. Someone told me a long time ago to do something, and it works. You get a lighter and you kind of hold it not right on the tick, but close enough to where it gets it uncomfortable, and you wait for him to back out, and then you pull that sucker off of you, because you don't want to rip his head off and then his head's embedded into your skin. Because those little suckers, they crawl inside your skin. It's nasty. Clean the area, take a picture of the tick to help identify it and the disease it may carry, and watch for warning signs like rash, fever, chills, fatigue, joint pain, muscle aches, and swollen lymph nodes. Pet owners should also be vigilant. The CDC recommends checking animals that go outside every day during the warm weather, especially around the ears, eyelids, and tail, under the collar, under the front legs, and between the toes. One of my dogs is black, so it's really hard to find ticks on her. Ticks on pets can be removed with tweezers in the same way as on humans. Signs of a tick-borne disease in pets include sudden lameness, often shifting legs, joint pain, fever, lethargy, loss of appetite, swollen lymph nodes, and pale gums. Symptoms that necessitate an emergency vet visit. So I will say that I just gave both of my dogs Bravecto flea and tick medication. It's a little chewable tablet that you give them, and it's supposed to protect them for up to 3 months. Well, my friend that I adopted my new Great Dane from, she's still a puppy. She's 9 months. She came out of a horrible environment. She's underweight. And my friend begged me not to give her the flea and tick medication, Bravecto. She was calling it poison and all sorts of stuff. So I showed I didn't take the COVID. I didn't take that nonsense, and I'm sort of against a lot of that stuff personally. But I did show my vet the text, and my vet sort of got annoyed, and she's like, it's not dangerous. And anyway, whatever. She convinced me to get it, and because I've been giving it to my other dog, my pit bull, for years. I've been giving her that stuff. Well, the very next day, both of my dogs had blood in their poop. I don't know for sure if it was from the flea and tick medication, because I did just change their food recently, and they did have a bit of the runs, a bit of the Hershey's, if you know what I mean. And it might have been because of that, but it is kind of weird that the very next day after giving them that medication, that they had blood in their stool. So that wasn't great. But again, I did just change their food, and they had the runsies the days leading up to that, so it could have been that. Anyway, this is the article that a lot of people are talking about here. This is from Time Magazine. It says, it's funny. This is all the way back from February. Oh wait. Okay, actually, this is an older article, but we're gonna read it anyway because it's funny. The title. So this is March 13th, 2023. And the title of this one is How Climate Change Affects the Spread of Lyme Disease. So let's see what he has to say. The warming world can be a hospitable place for black-legged ticks. which carry the bacteria that cause Lyme disease. They thrive in temperatures at or above 7.2 degrees Celsius or 45 degrees Fahrenheit, and at 82% or greater humidity. The warmer, the wetter, the better. The warmer and wetter, the better. As climate change steadily bakes the planet, with shorter, milder winters and longer, hotter summers in the springs, the ranges of places with those conditions is growing. However, climate change is actually making some parts of the world less hospitable to ticks. Okay, extreme weather leads to droughts, which, you know what, I don't know if I have time to get into the climate change aspect of this, but I guess it's not that long, so we'll keep going. If I get fed up, I'm going to stop reading this thing. Fall is their peak season, says Thomas Mather, professor with the public health at the University of Rhode Island and the director of schools Ticks Encounter Resource Center, and they come out especially around October and November, and they start to slow around Thanksgiving. Parts of Mather's own state used to be cool for the ticks to enjoy such a robust season, but not anymore. In the 1990s, the black-legged tick was found pretty readily in the southern part of Rhode Island, but not in the northern part, he says. And the following decade, we saw them spreading north as well. That expansion of the ticks in some parts of the U.S., however, is being met by a die-off in other sorts. Black-legged ticks may be known mostly in the northeast species as a northeast species, but they particularly populate the south, the plains, and the western range as well. All of these regions have struggled with drought in recent years, and all of them are thus hospitable to ticks. Okay, you know what? I've had enough. Ticks are bad. Nobody wants them. I don't have time for the climate change stuff with the ticks right now. And I've been dealing with ticks since I was a little kid. I'm in the Santa Cruz Mountains. I was born and raised in South San Jose, and I was climbing around in the foothills all the time. So ticks have always been a thing. I'm not going to talk about the climate change aspect of this. So interestingly, there's you got Pfizer coming out with a new Lyme disease vaccine. So right now, there are currently no licensed human vaccines for Lyme disease in the United States, though a candidate developed by Pfizer and Valneva has shown over a 70% efficacy in phase 3 trials and is seeking FDA approval with potential release around 2027. I wonder if they're testing it on beagles, those rat bastards. The only approved human tick-borne vaccine in the U.S. is TickVac, tick-borne encephalitis vaccine, which protects against tick-borne encephalitis virus. It is FDA approved for individuals aged 1 year and older, and the primary recommended for travelers to endemic areas in Europe and Asia. Okay, so let's get into what everybody's talking about, because you're seeing all these videos popping up on the interwebs, and it's freaking a lot of people out. So let's watch some of this stuff.
If you live in these parts of the country, which is practically half of the US, you should start taping up your legs like this guy every time you go outside. There's this tiny little...
I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that every time I go outside. I will risk the Lyme disease. I might regret it, but I'm not taping up my legs when I go running.
Bug called the Lone Star tick, causing massive problems.
Also, we don't have those in California. They're like mainly around Texas. So yeah, this thing terrifies me. Get a good look at it. It's like a red tick, and it's got like a white spot on its back. It's like the black widow of ticks.
A single bite from this guy reprograms your entire immune system, causing alpha-gal syndrome, which makes you allergic to red meat, and it can be life-threatening. Now, what's crazy to me is that these ticks have apparently been around for over 200 years, but there was no recorded cases of alpha-gal syndrome until just about 20 years ago, and now we're seeing a 100-fold increase in cases.
And a lot of people are speculating that this is actually a genetically modified tick in order to get people to become allergic to meat, because us useless eaters can't be eating up all the red meat for the elites, allegedly.
The official explanation is that these ticks are spreading because of climate shifts and growing deer populations, but I find it awfully ironic that the same people pushing the global warming agenda while simultaneously investing in the solutions for it are also pushing the agenda to eat lab-made and plant-based meat, which are miserably failing. We also know about Lyme disease, another devastating tick-borne illness, and its relationship to Bioengineering Lab 257 on Plum Island, just 9 miles away from Lyme, Connecticut. Now, I don't know about you, but it's interesting that as thousands of people are healing and feeling better incorporating red meat back into their diet, there just so happens to be this exploding population of ticks that could forever prevent you from eating it.
We can use human engineering to make it the case that we're intolerant to certain kinds of meat.
This bastard. So I got the full clip from him. So let's watch what this guy actually has to say here. Stand by here. Yeah, let's watch the whole clip from this guy.
Meat, right? And if they were to cut down on their consumption of meat, then they would it would actually really help the planet. But people are not willing to give up meat. Yeah, you know, some people will be willing to, but other people, they may be willing to, but they have a weakness of will. They say, wow, this steak is just too juicy.
So we can make them allergic to it. This guy's a maniac.
I can't do it. I'm one of those, by the way. So, you know, but so here's the thought, right? So it turns out that we know a lot about, we have these intolerance to, for example, I have milk intolerance.
What are you getting at, buddy?
And some people are intolerant to crayfish. So possibly we can use human engineering to make it the case that we're intolerant to certain kinds of meat.
And there it is. He wants to make humans intolerant to meat. Involuntarily? What do you think people are going to volunteer for this? They're not volunteering to stop eating meat. So what? What's your plan, guy? You want to spread ticks around that make humans intolerant to meat, you psychopath?
Certain kinds of bovine proteins. And there's actually analogs of this in life. There's this thing called the Lone Star tick, where if it bites you, you will become allergic to meat. I can sort of describe the mechanism. So that's something that we can do through human engineering. We can kind of possibly address really big world problems through human engineering.
What do you think of his idea? Do you like his idea? I don't.
Emergency rooms across the United States are reporting record levels of tick bites, higher than we have literally ever seen before.
No, that's not what I just read. According to the California Post, it's the same as it was in 2017. And it went from 30 per 100,000 to 70 per 100,000, which, yes, is more than double the amount, but it's still 70 per 100,000. It's not, 50,000 per 100,000. So let's calm down a little bit.
Nobody's asking the question, why? Everything I'm about to provide is data and factual information. I've linked all my sources down below, and as always, I implore you to look into it yourself. All right, let's look at the data. The highest concentration of tick-borne disease in America sits in the Northeast, New York, Massachusetts, and Connecticut. That is not random. In fact, that's where Lyme disease was very first identified, and not too long ago either. It was first identified in Connecticut in 1975. Before then, America never even heard of Lyme disease. And get this, just miles away from that very first case sits a government facility. This facility is called Plum Island, and it's an animal and disease center. However, it was also a lab during the Cold War. This lab was a part of America's biological research system, and it was focused on creating animal disease and biological weapons. In the 1950s and 60s, during the Cold War, America was actively researching biological warfare using insects and ticks. Not just pathogens, but the delivery systems, including ticks. They wanted to know how they could get it out there. And in 2019, Congress requested an investigation into whether specific ticks had ever been used in biological weapons between the 1950s and 1975. Now, that's not a theory, that's an official congressional directive. If you don't think that this is already pretty strange, here's where things get even stranger. So, the very first case of Lyme disease appears in Connecticut in 1975. Again, before that, ticks were nothing. In fact, in the 1970s, the tick population was so low and unheard of that America wasn't even tracking ticks. So we don't actually know where it came from or why it started. Here's what we do know. Ticks and the diseases they carried did not stay contained.
So a lot of people are also speculating, obviously, that Lyme disease was a bioengineered disease, much like the disease that makes you allergic to red meat.
Spread north, south, and west, and they brought the diseases with them. In the 1980s, cases were in thousands. Nowadays, we see hundreds of thousands of tick-borne infections every single year in the United States. If you think that's strange, here's something even stranger. There's a tick-borne condition that is spreading like wildfire right now that's making people allergic to eating red meat. This alpha-gal syndrome, when people are getting bit by these very distinct ticks with white dots on them, they're not able to eat red meat anymore. Listen, whenever something feels off, there's a simple rule that's played all throughout history, and it's something that I preach time after time again on my channel if you're familiar with my videos. We have to follow the money, because again and again, the same patterns show up, and the systems that profit are often the ones that are also defining the outcome. So, who's profiting? Major institutions are now funding technologies that can control insect populations and reshape agriculture that is tick infested. However, there is a major player here. One of the most influential players in the system of profit is the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. The foundation funds infectious disease research, advanced diagnostics, and agricultural biotechnology.
Why do they always pop up when it comes to geoengineering, obviously the COVID, the fake biological meat that they're producing. Why are they always popping up? The dude's a computer scientist. Like, why? Why is this? Not to mention his relationship with Epstein. How has this dude not been canceled yet? And why is anybody still listening to this guy?
Including but not limited to Lyme disease medication, and they've invested billions into alternatives to create brand new type of lab-grown red meat that someone with alpha-gal syndrome can eat without getting sick. Provided you with strictly data, but I want you to zoom out and look at the big picture. A very specific disease appears in a very specific region. Tick populations spread like wildfire throughout the country. We now see a 400% surge in ticks. Cases rise dramatically, new conditions emerge, and at the same time, powerful institutions are funding solutions across disease, agriculture, and food. How many times does history have to repeat itself for us to look at something and say, oh, I get it?
Well, create the problem, present the solution. A story as old as time, right? So this is the video of the guy that's claiming that boxes of ticks are being dropped off on people's farms. So I don't know. I want to see the actual boxes full of ticks, because that's a pretty wild allegation.
You should do a little research. What I want to know is, why are people finding boxes of ticks on their farmland, specifically large farms with cows, sheep, goats, horses? What reason would people want to spread ticks and make that become a problem for farmers? I think we better start researching this and find out what exactly is going on, because this is quite concerning.
This also happens to be at the exact same time when farmers can't get fertilizer coming up on the spring planting, which is bad. A lot of people are speculating that there's going to be massive food shortages come 2027 because of the blockage of the Strait of Hormuz, and a lot of people can't get fertilizer. So this is a concerning situation. Farmers in America, particularly, are not doing well right now.
And it's not just one person, it's not just one farmer, but many farmers are finding ticks on their property. But this is really weird. I know Pfizer is coming out with some new products to help get rid of Lyme disease, but that can have nothing to do with it. We all know we can trust our government. Does anybody have any ideas what the hell's going on? Why they're finding boxes full of ticks in open fields?
So I went and looked for videos of farmers finding boxes of ticks, and I can't find them. The only thing I can find is this guy claiming it. So let's take it with a grain of salt here.
On people's properties? Something's really weird.
Now, if that is true, if boxes of ticks are being dropped off on farmers' property, that's highly concerning, and we should definitely get to the bottom of that. But I can't even find any videos of farmers reporting that boxes of ticks are being dropped off and showing the actual boxes of ticks. But there does definitely seem to be an uptick in ticks. I don't mean to keep using that pun, but I am. Is that a pun? All right, so this is a video. This is from Pacific Northwest Gorilla, and he's got a video of a snake with ticks on it. I didn't even know snakes got ticks, but check this out.
Now this might be the most ticks I've ever seen on any animal ever.
This is wild.
That is insane. And look at the size of them. They're enormous.
I hate ticks so much. They're freaking awful. And when you have a dark dog like me, it's often you don't find them until they're this size, because you'll be petting them and then you'll find a big giant bump and you're like, oh, holy shit. And it's been on there a while.
Huge ticks on this girl. But we just got this python out of the Everglades, and she was sitting on a clutch of eggs. We got them too, and you can see she popped this egg right away. You can see the embryo in there is starting to look like a snake. It's got scales developed, so these weren't too far off from hatching. So we got her out just in the nick of time.
Nope. I am not a fan of ticks, and I am not a fan of those big giant snakes either. I don't mind snakes. I just don't like the rattlers and the big giant crazy snakes that you find in Florida. All right, there's another one. So this gentleman, Pacific Northwest Gorilla, seems to be highly concerned that there is something hinky going on with this seeming outbreak of ticks. So there's another good reason to keep a roll of duct tape in your pack. If you're going on like crazy hikes where you're going to be bushwhacking, where the trails get really narrow and there's bushes, they're overgrown, that kind of thing. In that case, I would recommend wearing long pants and maybe even taping the bottoms of your pants around your boots. With a roll of duct tape, you can wrap a piece of duct tape around your hand with the sticky part facing out, and you can use it kind of like a lint roller, and you can get ticks off you like that. So that's probably what this guy did there. And just look at the amount of ticks that he pulled off himself on that one little sticky piece. That's insane. Oh man. Oh, I apologize. I can stop sharing really quick. So let me reshare this video because apparently I lost audio. I apologize. Hopefully you had audio on that last one. All right, we'll go back to it. All right. Hopefully you guys got it.
The same organism that causes Rocky Mountain spotted fever, and that's the most deadly tick-borne disease in the United States. It also was a germ that was being weaponized by the U.S. military at the time, and they tried to stuff it in ticks. I mean, so what is tick weaponization? So in the interviews with Willie, what he said was, I spent over a decade in the biological weapons program, a contractor to Fort Detrick, working on weaponizing fleas, ticks, and mosquitoes, trying to mass produce them, stuffing fleas with the plague, stuffing mosquitoes with deadly Trinidad virus, and then stuffing ticks with either deadly or incapacitating diseases like relapsing fever, Venezuelan equine encephalitis, rabies, leptospirosis, which is another spirochete. So it's just like Dr. Strangelove trying to make new diseases, mixing bacteria and virus in ticks with the intent of, this is the perfect stealth weapon. It's poor man's nuke. You drop these insects on an enemy, it weakens the population, it ties up the medical resources, but doesn't destroy infrastructure like a nuclear bomb would. And in one report from a bean counter in the military, they said, tularemia, which is tick-borne tularemia, also rabbit fever, we can kill 10,000 people at $1.33 a life. So anyways, it was just, there was more to tick-borne diseases than we realized, and I began suspecting that Willie was right, given this context.
It's hard to digest all of this. It's just so evil.
All right, genetically modified ticks. You guys buying this? I don't know. This is, it's funny that there's this, I'm not going to call it a fear campaign, but it does seem that right when Pfizer is coming out with a vaccine for Lyme disease, that you see all these videos of ticks everywhere and articles coming out and people freaking out about ticks. So I don't know, because you're seeing stuff like this. This is a deer just completely covered in ticks. I mean, completely. It's like ants on a piece of candy on the sidewalk on a hot summer day. This is wild. And I mean, you get enough ticks on you, they can kill you. They suck blood. So pretty wild. You are seeing a lot of crazy stuff with this tick situation. So let's watch one more clip here. So this is from Valerie Ann Smith. So farmers across the USA are reporting boxes of ticks being left in their fields, ticks everywhere, as Pfizer is rushing a new Lyme disease vaccine. So let's see. She's reporting the same thing that the other guy did, but again, I haven't found any videos of actual boxes of ticks being pulled off of farms. So let's watch this one. See what she has to say.
Oh, so farmers across the USA have reported boxes of ticks being left in their fields. And now we're being warned this is supposed to be the worst tick season ever. I know what you're thinking, but don't worry. Pfizer just announced that they're coming out with a new Lyme vaccine in 2027. And I'm sure it's safe and effective as always. And Pfizer just has your health and best interests at heart. Also, I'm sure ticks being left in the fields has nothing to do with this vaccine coming out. That's just a coincidence.
So where are these farmers? I haven't heard. Well, here's an article. Have Missouri farmers reported finding boxes of ticks in the fields? Snopes reached out to hundreds of Missouri officials to find answers about the social media users claiming farmers reporting findings of suspicious boxes. Okay, so what did Snopes find? Snopes isn't really an organization I trust too much, but again, I haven't seen any actual farmers claiming this. So I don't know. We'll keep an eye on it because I am not a fan of ticks. I am not a fan of ticks at all. Definitely not a fan of Lyme disease. So I don't know. You guys tell me. What do you think in the comments? You think ticks are being bioengineered to make us allergic to meat and make us want to get the new tick vaccine? I don't know. I'm curious. All I know is that you should do everything you can to protect yourself against getting bit by ticks. So they are not a fun thing. All right, folks, if you made it this far, please like, share, and subscribe. Thanks for watching the video, and I will see you on the next one.